I thank everybody for joining us. Uh, President John Weed is on vacation, but joining us by Zoom here. I'm the Vice President of Washington Township, and I'm your host for the evening. Tim Swenson is our secretary, and he is at the museum doing all of the tough technical work. So we thank Tim very much. So this evening, we wanted to share some stories about the African American experience in uh, not only America, but our specific communities of Fremont, Newark, Union City, and Hayward. And as we're trying to get other folks to join us, I wanted to share four books which I recently went through, uh, which are elucidate a lot of the Black American experience in our own backyard. And frankly, I was a little shocked when I went through some of these materials. But the first one is a book by Maria Ochoa with the Hayward Area Historical Society. She is a professor at San Jose State. And this book is entitled Russell City. And uh, another book that I have is for recommendation is Whatever Happened to Russell City in Hayward. This is written by a lady who was an archaeology student at San Francisco State, Megan Wilkinson, and she now works for Google. Um, and these two books illustrate the devastation that occurred pretty much in our own lifetimes to the decimation of Russell City and Hayward. The County Board of Supervisors and the City of Hayward, when it was formed, decided under eminent domain to eradicate an entire city of African Americans, which was one of the epicenters of the West Coast for jazz music, culture, entertainment, and everything else. City of Hayward holds a special celebration once a year for the living descendants and family members of Russell City. And so I wanted to highlight this because I tried to contact Maria Ochoa several times, and we talked about her book, which is by Arcadia Books, same book series we have in the museum. But she was unavailable to talk. She said she would be willing to do so at a future occasion. But these two books really highlight the challenges and the difficulties of African Americans in the Bay Area during the last decades. I have another book here, which I mentioned to Teresa over the weekend that I went through called, it's a brand new book, Renegades, Born in the USA, by President Obama and the musician Bruce Springsteen. It is extremely entertaining to go through this book because this is a book where two different people from two different backgrounds are sharing their American stories and what it means to be black and white in America. And here you have a former president and an accomplished musician that are spending several occasions coming together, and they did an iPod cast, and this book is just rich in, I think, the current conversation in America about what it means to be of different races, ethnicities, cultural groups, and how we form a better America in the future. The last book, which is also a newly published book, I would highly recommend, is Ricky Henderson by one of our great authors who worked at the Oakland Tribune and San Jose Mercury News. Ricky Henderson is only a year older than I am. I grew up with him from the time he was 18 years old. And his story is a very special story. And what I consider very important here for our historical communities is that the author wrote not just the biography of Ricky Henderson, but he went backward in time. He wanted to portray what happened between 1940 and 1970 with the great wave of African American migration, chiefly from four states: Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Texas. And even our former mayor of San Francisco, Willie Brown, and his family emigrated from the Texas-Louisiana border, where his grandparents were sharecroppers. And what happened in Oakland, even though I grew up in Fremont, I was really unfamiliar until I read this book about the total concentration and segregation of the black population into West Oakland, and how many great athletes in basketball, football, baseball, other sports all came from the same high schools in primarily West Oakland. Ricky Henderson was one of those people. I have a classmate that is joining us here on this Zoomcast that I grew up from kindergarten through high school, and she and I remember one of the great. I'm not sure how to describe it, except to say it was a crime to steal one of the black athletes who was 2 years younger than Ricky Henderson, bring him down to Mission San Jose High School to an illegal residence. And in that year, Mission San Jose High School became the Northern California champions in football. Never again did it happen. And still today, he holds the state record in number of touchdowns in a single season and was on many sports magazines. That was Mike Carnell. And he grew up just 2 years behind Ricky Henderson. So this portrayal of Oakland by a black author who is writing this biography on Ricky Henderson, I found extremely powerful because I went to school at UC Berkeley. A lot of these stories were occurring while I was growing up and then a student. So with that background on these four entertaining books that I hope you will thoughtfully try to reach out to, I would like to introduce two special guests tonight. I know our program was highlighting Gene Ficklin, who was the founder of the African-American Cultural and Historical Society of Fremont, Newark, Union City, and Hayward. Unfortunately, her daughter passed away just recently, and so she is unable and regrets not being able to join us tonight. I have Mr. Ken Smith, who I will give a more formal introduction to, speaking on behalf of the Society. But I would like to proceed with an introduction to the Honorable Teresa Cox, Council Member on the Fremont City Council, our first African-American elected official on the Ohlone College Board of Trustees, and now on the Fremont City Council, for a city that was formed in 1956. And I know a lot of people here know Teresa, but she has a very special, interesting, truly American story, as Dr. Gates would say, on finding your roots. And so I am really pleased to have Teresa here. And I asked Teresa if she could talk about her own personal story from childhood to where she presently serves on the City Council. Thank you, Teresa, and I will let you go forward.
Thank you, Paul, so much for inviting me to speak tonight, and to all of you here, Washington Township Historical Society. I honor you, and also in respecting and acknowledging the history that we got to know where we came from in order to be able to move forward to make our community better. So I thank you so much for all of your hard work and keeping this moving forward. I know when history succeeds, so do our communities, because it's part of the history of bringing us all together. And as my mother always told me, to practice the three B's: you got to be good, you got to be quick, and you got to be gone. So I always have dedicated my upbringing to my mother, who is no longer on this earth. She passed away when I was in college, and her memories, last forever. And I stand on her shoulders, but I also stand on the shoulders of my great grandparents. Um, for example, my great grandmother was known as a suffrage leader, Sarah Dudley Petty, and she was one of the foremost in the Afro-American community of getting women out the right to vote, and also working with so many women of so many different cultures. And she's been written in a lot of books from Yale University, doing research on my family. Another part is that this is part of the history that my mother, when I was growing up, she would tell us bedtime stories about my great grandparents. They lived here in California, and they actually founded a town named Pettyville that got absorbed into San Francisco. And so they were very instrumental in bringing about education. When after slavery was actually was abolished, and we know the history with what has happened across the country with Juneteenth. But part of it was that as they ended up having those that could become the slaves became free, we also needed to be educated, which started in the churches. And so my great grandparents were involved in the church, but they were educators, and they went to teach and opened over 200 schools down in the South, but also out here in California. And by establishing a town, it was a lot of other people of other racial backgrounds that came to live in Pettyville. And everybody lived as one big town. You had your restaurant, you had your place to go to school and church, all of that. And so I'm very proud of the work that my great grandparents did. And my great grandfather was a bishop, and he actually ended up overseeing this whole entire West Coast, and with his history. But he would give you the spiritual thought, and then my great grandmother would give you the social justice. Is there not a place a woman could be? And so she was noted for always bringing people together. One of the other things that I really appreciated in growing up was that my mother was, I feel, was most courageous and most inspiring person I've ever known, because she raised my two brothers and I on a school teacher's salary after my father had died when I was 9 years old. And so my mother always instilled the value of education, and she taught me the importance also of giving back. For example, my mother was the president of the teachers union back when I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. But my mother had grown up, and her childhood was in New York City. So I spent a lot of time on the East Coast growing up, and then later on in life settling out here to California. But one of the things that she always shared was my great grandparents raised the money for Tuskegee University with Booker T. Washington. And Tuskegee is a historically Black college and university. And in fact, one of my colleagues serving on the city of Fremont's city council, Dr. Raj Sawan, is a veterinarian, and he got his training at Tuskegee University's veterinarian school. So that's how full circle the community can be. And realizing the education is for everyone. And so that was part of the history. And my parents both went to historically Black colleges, Central State. My mother did, and she became a professor there at Central State playing the music. If you know the name Lenatine Price, who was the songbird for President John F. Kennedy, she was the one that was the singing. She did the singing. Well, my mother and her were college classmates, and she used to accompany her to different events to play for her. And if you know the name Todd Duncan, he was famous for a singer and actor that starred in Porgy and Bess. And so these are things that I always grew up with, a lot of music, and even some of the more recent artists that came around in the hip hop R&B came out of Dayton, Ohio, like Lakeside and the Ohio Players. Some of them I'm talking a little ways down, but this is some of the music and some of the people my mother taught in the public school later on when she had my brothers and I. And one of the things that I learned from education was that she knew me better than myself at certain points, which led me to go into a career of engineering. So when I graduated from Northwestern University, I became the first Afro-American with a degree in nuclear engineering in the United States. And with that honor, I paid tribute because I loved math and science. And at that time also, it was the part of having the on-hands experience because in the city of Chicago, it is powered by nuclear energy with Commonwealth Edison there. And being a part of Northwestern, I got a chance to meet some very fascinating people that were in that field. Another part, I went on to get my MBA, and I ended up working on Wall Street. And that was an exciting time when you do mergers and acquisitions. And it was another way because I went to MBA school at the University of Rochester, the Simon School. And that's where I also had an opportunity to meet the first president for me was George Bush Sr. And he was college classmates with our dean. And that's where I got to learn a lot about international business and learned those type of skills from business school. But all these things leading up to working on Wall Street. And then, of course, I was there with part of the Black Monday when everybody was laid off, 500,000 people laid off that had jobs in the finance industry. That's when the stock market had crashed back then. But I had my engineering to rely back on. So I started working for the Department of Defense and helping to design a lot of our military equipment. And one thing I knew was that I had an opportunity to leave my current job and guess what? Work at the White House. And that was very exciting to work in the White House during the Clinton administration. One of the most fascinating events that I probably will always cherish was getting a chance to meet President Nelson Mandela when he first came out of exile and from staying in the prison camps there. And ended up that I also had got a chance to represent the White House at Howard University, where he was bestowed the honorary degree from Howard University, which is another prestigious historically black college in Washington, D.C. And also one of your famous alumni is our Vice President, Kamala Harris, who also went there. I had an opportunity to gain so many skills in working in public engagement, which are some of the things that I've enjoyed over the years to apply some of those same experiences and skills working with the world leaders and applying them to our local community, such as putting on events and working at so many different levels to bring people together and working to make our community better so everybody can understand each other more. I think one of the other things that was really important was that I got appointed by President Obama. And I saw a question there. What was my role? My role was I was one of the public engagement. They call it public engagement now, but back then it was the Office of Engagement. And so part of it was that a public liaison was the Office of Public Liaison. So I was one of the assistants there working directly with the Assistant to the President of the United States. And so we put on a lot of events across the country, pulling together different mayors. We would do White House briefings. We would also do what was happening at that time was affirmative action, the Haitian situation was going on where the president was exiled from his own country and had to come here to help have the United States help him bring some sort of stability to the country. So it was a unique kind of different roles being appointed in that arena of working in the public and working with the public and the public leaders. And in fact, I remember meeting my pastor, who later on became my pastor out here in California, was J. Alfred Smith, meeting him first at the White House all those years earlier. So you just never know. It's a circle of life, right? He was over the Allen Temple Baptist Church there in Oakland, where I used to go as a member, and both my two children were both baptized there at Allen Temple. So the world gets very small. I think one of the other experiences that allowed me was that I did work in corporate America. I've worked for Salesforce, LinkedIn, Facebook, all these wonderful companies, including our own Lamb Research right here in Fremont. But one of the things that was an honor to serve on the Trade Export Council. So I was a trade advisor to the Obama administration. So we did travel a bit with the Commerce Secretary. At that time, it was Gary Locke. And what we did was we worked to try to break down barriers happening on policy side and help provide input on some of the international trade agreements that were happening at that time. But also, when you look at it, President Obama had a national export initiative to help small businesses be able to sell more goods and services around the world. Because when you look at it, that's how we help create jobs. And 95% of the world's consumers live outside the United States. So these are things that the more companies export, the more that they were able to produce. And we could bring home good jobs, good paying jobs here at home. And so another part was that for working on those experiences, later on, I've gone through 4 presidents now, and I have worked on all sides of the aisle to help create small businesses, to help them thrive and break down some of these barriers. And now I've been serving as with the Department of Commerce. We have what is called it's called the District Export Council, and this council works with all the foreign governments, but also works for the state, works for the local government. We're needed to help businesses expand on what they're doing and getting their goods and their services sold overseas. But it starts right here in the home base. And you probably have seen some of the things that I've said during city council is how can we help give more businesses from businesses, big businesses here in Fremont, how can we tie the businesses to small business to award some of the contracts that we have ongoing, such as it could be as simple as Xerox paper, selling that from the big, small company to the big companies. How about janitorial services? How about if there's food, there's catering, all these different things that can help build our businesses back up. And so I've had experiences of doing international business and procurement strategies and opportunities to closing the deals. That could be millions of dollars. But one of the exciting things that I really enjoyed is that over the years of meeting so many unique people and so many different areas. So it's one of the things that makes the position very unique, and why I decided locally. I'm a single mother with 2 kids, and my oldest is now David. He's in Cal State, East Bay, coming out this coming year. And my daughter is a senior. She got recruited for basketball with Archbishop Mitty. And if you're familiar with basketball, Archbishop is ranked #1 in the Bay Area and ranked in the top 20 schools in the United States for women's basketball. But she went to school. Both my kids have gone through the schools of Fremont, and ended up that my daughter got selected to go on and play at Archbishop Mitty. But what I think is one of the most important things that has happened is it brings everybody together in our community. And some of the things that I shared, the history, especially about my grandmother and great grandmother, is things to pass on to the next generation. So people don't forget where their roots are, but also gives you in times of challenge, it gives you time to be able to express why we got to still keep history alive, why things happen now, and also paying homage to both. When I ran for city council and when I ran for Ohlone College was a big part because education, as you heard me talk earlier about my mother, about my family history, that education was foremost the equalizer for others to able to progress and lead productive lives, but also build a better community together. And with Ohlone College, I got to thank all of you taxpayers because you helped raise the $349 million to build all of the academic core buildings there at Ohlone College that reside. And that was one of the last closing actions as a board of trustees to be able to look at the work that the community had been doing and continue and giving the best education. You got the best science center there at Ohlone College. Ohlone is ranked seventh in the state for all of the academic and the academics there for community colleges, and that's where I ran and made history as the first Afro-American at Ohlone College Board of Trustees and came off as the vice chair. Now serving with the Fremont City Council is taking some of the experiences that I learned from being on Ohlone College and transferring some of it and applying it to being in Fremont City Council. And I made history becoming the first Afro-American ever elected to Fremont City Council in almost 65 years. But you don't get there by yourself. You get there because you worked with everyone from the trenches and the calls that you had to work with others that are in need and how to help others. And it was very gratifying to be able to run and represent City of Fremont. And it's one of the things that I think that leading forward, one of the biggest accomplishments since I've just been on City Council less than 2 years, I took the initiative to pass Juneteenth. And Juneteenth is the holiday and celebration that the last group of slaves that were located in Texas were actually freed from being in slavery and bondage. And that's one of the big things that bringing a different lens, bringing inclusion, diversity, equity, inclusion is part of how I'm working with Fremont City Council, my other city council members and mayor. But it's also about equality and how we can continue to represent everyone. Juneteenth may be started as an Afro-American holiday, but not until everyone is free and free from the barriers that allow people to be treated equally and be included, will we really be totally free. But it's a start. And as a start, that starts with all of us right now and how we can all work together to make it a better place, because all of us can be drum majors to work hard in our community and bring all of us together. And a lot of it is understanding our history and understanding why different cultures behave or in that way, and how we can break down some of the barriers and the communication and the understanding to be able to build a better community. And I strongly feel on how to work with everyone and how to find common ground. Everybody wants a good education for their family. Everyone wants to live in safe neighborhoods to raise your family. Everyone wants a good paying job that they feel they can contribute and take care of your family. And so those are things that still resonate as you hear me speak during city council meetings, but it's also how to help all of us be one community and share. And we are Fremont and Fremont history. And I think one of the other things that's very unique with tying in with Washington Township, I was sharing with Paul. Yes,
Teresa, my friend, I'm going
yes.
to have to ask you to wrap it up in a nutshell here
Okay,
so we can proceed to our other guest.
no worries.
Thank
I'm
you so much for
wrapping
your
it up.
very eloquent introduction to our subject this evening.
No worries. Thank you so much. And I was just going to say that I'm a member of the Women's Club of Washington Township. And so, which ties in with the history of Washington Township Historical Society and honoring them this past year, 125 years in existence. So we're all partners together. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Could you finally mention the sorority you belong to and all the important work that's done by that group?
I belong to Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, and my aunt was the past national president of the sorority. We engage in community service, that we help literacy. We help raise money for students to go to college. We have leadership programs. We also sponsor health and wellness for those disadvantaged for cancer or some sort of cancer screening. And in this case, we were involved with COVID, getting test kits out to the different communities. So we cover globally. Our organizations are located around the world. So thank you.
Teresa, thank you so much, and we look forward to many more years of good service for our community. I'll see you shortly around. I know where.
Okay, thank
Coming
you.
up. Okay, so I would like to introduce our next guest who's filling in for Jean Bicklin, who unfortunately cannot be here. But I've known Ken for quite a few years in the community. And Ken is a longtime local resident and member of the African-American Cultural and Historical Society of Fremont, Newark, Union City, and Hayward. He attended Jackson State University in Mississippi, majoring in business administration and management. He is the owner of Ken Smith Realty in Newark and has been a consultant the past 22 years to Realty World One Alliance, also in Newark, both businesses located at the Newark Mall. Ken served our community some years back as a member of the board of directors for the Union Sanitary District, and he is active in other civic affairs as well. He was the executive board member for the Newark Chamber of Commerce, ambassador for both the Newark Chamber and Fremont Chamber, of which I belong to as well. He is the recently past president of Abode Services, which serves the underprivileged and homeless communities in our communities. He also volunteers for Musicians for Minor 2, volunteer for Life Elder Care, and again with service toward our more underprivileged communities. He has served on the Alameda County Housing and Community Development Organization. And I mentioned to Ken today I'm on the Alameda County Oversight Board, and today we had quite a discussion that was relevant to that very last organization that we're talking about. So with that introduction, Ken, we'll get your slide presentation up and running, and welcome to, I guess this is our summertime group. We normally have more like 40 to 60 people, but there are a lot of people on vacation right now. But we thank you for coming in and serving in Jean's footsteps.
Well, thank you, Paul. Thank you for that introduction. And I want to thank Washington Township Historical Society for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you this evening in reference to the Afro-American Cultural and Historical Society. When Paul first asked me some time ago, I kind of hesitated because I've only been a member for maybe 3 years or so. And I told him that Gene Ficklin, who's the founder, would be a much better speaker for this occasion. And unfortunately, as you know, Paul indicated, Gene's daughter recently passed away, so she wasn't able to give the presentation. So I'm just stepping in, and I hope I can do the society justice. Like I said, I've been with the society as a member for about 3 years, a little less than 3 years. And the mission for the society is to provide a vehicle for Black Americans in the area to share our history through educational and cultural activities, as well as networking together in harmony and friendship with multi-ethnic groups. And throughout I guess the year, we have several events to promote our mission statement. One of the events is the Kwanzaa celebration, which is in December. We sponsor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. commemoration program. That's usually in January. And of course, we have the annual Black History Month, which is in February. And we have an award scholarship to high school seniors who are going off to college. And we have other programs throughout the year as they come up. And what I'll do, as Paul said, I'm going to try to go through a slide presentation and try to get as much information as I can out to your organization.
Okay, so I need to do a process check here with Tim Swenson.
Okay.
So you can put up the slide presentation.
Paul, you are co-host. You should be able to share your desktop.
Oh my goodness. Now tell me how to do that.
It's been one of those days.
Yeah.
Right down at the bottom, you should see a green share screen.
Okay.
Everyone's saying, click on that. As your
Yep.
co-host, you should be able to then just follow the directions.
Do I go to desktop one?
If you have wherever your doc, if you have more than one desktop, then if that's where your document is, then do desktop one.
Okay. But I don't have this desktop on I don't have the presentation on my desktop.
And where do you have it?
Let's see here. I sent it to you.
And you said you were going to annotate it and you be the presenter. I did not bring a copy with me because you said you had it.
But I sent you the PDF file I have. I don't have the actual slide presentation back from you because you said you couldn't send it. It was too large.
I thought I sent it last night.
I did not receive it. So it must have been too large from sending from your direction.
And I didn't bring a copy with me because I thought you said you had it.
Okay, well.
So, no, hold on. I'm going to pull up the.
Bring up the Word document.
I'm going to pull it up in a Word document here, Ken.
Okay.
And then I have the notes on my desktop from Gene as to, excuse me, as to what each picture is describing, if you need any help here. But
okay.
I have to wait for this document to open up. Microsoft is working on it right now. Hang on. Boy, it's taking a long time to open up here.
But while that's opening up, I'll give a little history about myself. I was born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi. A family of, well, I was the only male, and I had 6 sisters. And growing up in a household like that, you know, it was kind of tough. I did go to Jackson State University, a business major. And after I attended a program there that was an experimental program for historically Black colleges. What they did was they gave it wasn't a full year scholarship, 4-year scholarship, but they gave us 2 years in the program, scholarship, everything paid for. You had to stay on campus, your books, your meals, everything was paid for. And they took a random of students. It wasn't just high achieving students. It was those that C students, those that were just barely making it. And they were saying if we put them in this group together, what would the outcome be? It was called the 13 College Curriculum Program, and it was in 13 of the historically Black colleges. And we also went on field trips that were paid for, went to operas and things like that, educational, well-rounded educational. And if it wasn't for that program, I probably would have been drafted into the armed services. And I just thank God that that program was there for me. And that's why I am so, I guess, in tune with the Afro-American Cultural and Historical Society and the scholarships and the work that they do in the community. You know, after graduating from, I guess, college, it was difficult for me as a Black male to find a job in my field in Mississippi. So I headed west, went to Las Vegas. I was there for a year. I worked for the telephone company in their non-paid department and represented them in small claims court. And after that, I moved on to San Francisco, where I worked for an insurance company in claims. And I was not only the first African-American in their program, but the first individual to go through that training program. After that, I moved on and worked for, some of you may know, Sealand Services, which was started by Malcolm McLean. That's a container shipping company. And I handled all of their, I guess, claims on the Pacific Rim, up and down the West Coast, anything over here going to Yokohama, Tokyo, Japan, China, all of that I handled. It was my, I guess, territory, you would say. And then after that, I went out on my own because at that time they had the first layoff. And of course, you know, last hired, first laid off or fired. And I was saying, what am I going to do now? I have a wife, a kid, and fortunately, I was able to go out, set up my own business, and did that kind of work. And to this day, I still have an investigator's license for the state of California. I'm a private investigator. And I also have my real estate license. Are those slides up yet?
Ken, I think, thank you for all that background. It's very much appreciated. I believe I do have everything here. I'm going to click on share screen.
Okay.
Let's see if we can get going here. Oh boy. Tim, I do have your presentation. I did receive it. I've got it on my desktop. And now I'm trying to figure out how I get to it for the share screen.
Share screen should give you an option, either an application or your whole desktop.
It says desktop 1. When I click on that, it says open system preferences. I click on that. And I'm not finding what I need to do after that. And Tim, you didn't bring the presentation with you?
No, I did not, because you said you had it.
No, I did not say I had it.
Okay, well, this is, okay, can we do this? Because I took the liberty of trying to, you said you sent me about 25 or 27 slides.
Yeah.
I took the liberty of printing them out, and I have them here, but your society will not be able to see them, unfortunately. But if you want, I can go through them and give the presentation that way.
We can always make them available separately. If you don't have them, Ken, electronically, if you have it electronically, I can make you co-host. If you don't have them, then just go ahead and we'll go through them.
Okay, I don't have them electronically. I printed them out and.
Tim, I have the presentation on my desktop. I have it open. Now, how do I get to the presentation?
When you click on share screen, it should give you the option of choosing your desktop or an application.
Oh,
It says desktop 1.
How many desktops do you have? Do you have more than one?
No, it says there's another one called Microsoft PowerPoint. Unknown.
Select that one. That's PowerPoint. See if that comes up. When it finished.
It says open system preferences. I click on that and then nothing happens.
Maybe it's looking to give you permission for you to share the desktop. That I don't know.
Well, this is not good. Ken, let's work together here. I'm going to try to scroll through the slides that I have
okay.
that Jean provided me with. So, as background, the African-American Cultural and Historical Society has had a museum located at the Newark Mall for a period of years, and during the pandemic, there was a transition, I believe, in ownership of the lessor of the mall, and so the museum has been closed. And as Jean told me and Ken, they're looking for a new permanent home. So the introductory slide is to all of the or the entrance to the museum with all of the cultural aspects there. Ken, can you speak to that a little bit about
Yes, I will. When I first met Gene Ficklin, it was at the museum here in New Park Mall. I walked by, was in because they were there in, I think, the month of February. Yes, in February, and it's been a few years ago. And I met Gene Ficklin there, and we talked and about the items that she had in the museum. It was just so many. I had never seen that many African-American or Black art and history in one place. It's amazing that the items that she has been able to collect, she and her organization, over the years. That's where I first met her, and we did talk a bit. And I learned that Gene also graduated from Jackson State University in Mississippi. So we had that in common. And the first slide was I guess, a picture of the entrance to the museum, which was located here in New Park Mall. And like Paul said, since I guess the pandemic and the different, the ownership of the mall has changed, I think about 3 times since I've been here. And they no longer have that space available. As a matter of fact, it's where 24-hour fitness is now. That's where the museum used to be located, in a portion of that on the lower level. And the next slide was a picture of one of our society members, Miriam Langford, sitting at the desk to the entrance of the museum. And she was sitting there with African-American board games and dolls, which it's important for our African-American and Black girls and children to be able to relate to dolls of color, or dolls that look like them or resemble them. And that's why we have a collection there, so they can see that. A lot of people or buy their children, they're just not available to buy in the open market. There's more of them now, but which is good, but it's been a history that you just can't find Black dolls. The next slide was one of a tribute to Martin Luther King Jr. When I was in, I guess, high school in Mississippi, I went to Lanier High School, which is one of the oldest Black high schools in the state, I believe. I know in the city of Jackson. Martin Luther King Jr. came by our school. We would have assembly where all the students would assemble and there would be a program. He came by our school and gave a speech just before his speech on Washington. And this was, I think, back in maybe 1963, 62, somewhere around that. At that time, I was just in, I think, junior high school and didn't know the significance of what was really going on. But he did come to our high school and he spoke and gave a speech before his speech on Washington in 1963. The next, I guess, slide was or is again a tribute to Dr. King, which was instrumental, and he gave his speech on, I guess, the Washington speech at the Washington Memorial and everything. I think that was it was actually on August 28th, 1963, in which was a peaceful demonstration, and it was for freedom, jobs, and democracy. And I think that speech was given about 58 years ago or something like that. And he talked about the Emancipation of Proclamation, which was signed by Lincoln well, it was signed on January 1st, 1863. And he gave his speech in August 1963. And it was 100 years later. And we're still, fighting for freedom and democracy in our country. The next slide was, I guess it was musicians, and it was titled Jazz. And we do have what we would call the Negro National Anthem, which is Lift Every Voice and Sing. And that was written by James Weldon Johnson. And the music was, by his brother, who was Rosamond Johnson. I believe his last name was Johnson. But jazz has played a big history in the, well, has played a big history in Black history itself. And everybody knows that, New Orleans, is famous for jazz, but jazz is all over, I guess, America, the world itself. And if you think of a universal language, so to speak, it would be music. Everybody can relate to music, no matter if it's country, Western, jazz, hip hop, soul music, R&B. Everyone can relate to music. And I believe that is actually our universal language. And the next slide was a slide that depicted, I'll read it to you. It said Black power, white power, red power, blonde power, brown power, yellow power, beige power, and rainbow power. And, I looked at all of that and I said, if we could just turn all of those into people power or human power, and how much better this world would be. And if we could just stop segregating ourselves. Everybody has their own idea of, what the world should be. If we could just come together as people and human beings, it would be a much better world, I feel. And the next slide was really on civil rights in America. And in that slide, there was a legacy, and then Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, and they had a little, I guess, dolls or animation. It looks like President Kennedy shaking Martin Luther King Jr.'s hand. And it talks about civil rights in America and the crisis in America that we're going through, or still going through. And the next slide was of Barack and Obama and Michelle Obama. And they have some of the articles and books that Barack Obama has, printed. And it's also, they have the I Have a Dream by Dr. Martin Luther King in this section. And as you know, President Obama was our 44th president of the United States, and I believe the first African-American that we have in history. The next slide was of African-American cookbooks. And Creole cooking, when you think of Creole cooking, you think about Louisiana and gumbo and foods of that nature. And there's a whole, I guess, section in the museum on of cookbooks that originated in the South, and what they call African-American cookbooks. And the next slide was on the Kwanzaa celebration, which was actually established in 1966. And Kwanzaa is celebrated from December 26th, which is falls on my birthday, to January 1st. It's a full week of celebration and vision. And it was a vision of Maulana Karingo, who started the Kwanzaa celebration in 1966. And in, I guess, 1997, the U.S. Postal Service released a stamp commemorating Kwanzaa. And at that time, it's a time for us to reflect and a time for us to share. And it's all about sharing our past, sharing our present, and sharing our vision for the future. And in Kwanzaa, you have the candles, and the black candle, there's one black candle, 3 red candles, and 3 green candles. The black candle represents the color of our skin. The red candles represents the blood that we have shed, and the green candles represent the future and a greener future for our people. In the next slide, represented or African-American marriage traditions. I'm sure, well, not sure, but many of you have heard jumping the broom as a way of being married in our culture. And because we didn't, I guess, have, I guess, a system that recognized slaves as being married, when they got married, they would put a broom down, decorate it, and both the man and woman would jump over this broom as a symbol of their unity. They would jump over it together. And that meant that they were a married couple. So that's a part of the history of the marriage traditions in the African-American culture. The next slide was, they talked about Colonel Allenworth State Historical Park. And I have never been there. I wanted to make a trip down there, but at that, well, it was just at the time that, quote, COVID, I guess, shut everything down. But it's a Black state historic park, and it's south of here. And one of our members of the Historical Society is a tour guide, Susie Smith. She is a tour guide there, and she goes down every year and gives tours there. And I'm just waiting for them to open the park up again, so I will be able to go. And I encourage all of you to make a trip down there. It's a part not only of Black history, but the history of California. And the next slide was a slide of, I guess, a tribute to Nelson Mandela. And when Nelson Mandela was, I guess, freed from prison after all of those years, he went on a tour and he spoke at different locations. And I was fortunate enough to hear him speak when he spoke at the Oakland Coliseum. This was some years ago. I don't remember exactly when it was, but I went there and I took my son so he could hear the speech and witness and see Nelson Mandela, and it was quite moving. The next slide was on African-American inventions, and it just put some of the items and things that were invented by Black Americans. And as slaves, when you worked for a slave owner or a master, so to speak, you could not have a patent. So Black people were actually doing the work. And so they wanted to make their work easier for them. And so they thought of ways to make their work easier. When this came up with the inventions, and a lot of these inventions were, of course, patented by the slave master or owner, and the Black people didn't get credit for it. And there was just a display of a lot of the inventions that Black America has contributed to America without getting acknowledged for it. And the next slide was on, I guess, Black American literature. And these are books that were published by Black Americans that wrote literature. And one of the things Teresa Cox had mentioned about education, and it was education was strongly I guess advised in Black, especially the South. And my parents always told me that get a good education. It's something that can't be taken away from you. that, you know, they can take your house, they can take your car, they can, but once you have an education, it cannot be taken away from you. And so the Black literature, reading books and analyzing and discussing literature was a big thing for being Black, especially in the South. And the next slide was on African instruments. And these are instruments that I guess Black people invented, because they look crude, you know, boards. I think you've probably seen some of them. It's just a little wooden box with metal clips on them that you know, hit for sound and all of that. And these were made because Black people, they didn't have a guitar, they didn't have a piano, so they made their own instruments of music that they shared with each other. And the next slide was on, I guess, a Black church. And it showed, you know, Black figures in pews in the churches and stuff, and music books that they sung, hymnals in church, and little Black angels and Black nativity scenes. And the instruments that I talked about were used in the Black church, because the only day that a slave had off, if he had a day off, was Sunday, when he or she could, you know, take their family, go to church and worship. And that created some of the Black instruments that I talked about before, when they sang the old spiritual hymnals. The next statement was just a picture of Gene Ficklin and some of the people that were in the museum when the museum was here in New Park Mall. And then there was a group picture of the society. And let's see, okay, at the museum. And these are just pictures of members, Gene, other members at the museum, guests at the museum, artwork in tribute to Dr. King. And when we were having our, I guess our Dr. King, I guess, tribute or celebration, there was an art teacher whose elementary students would, I guess, do art, and the art would be on display, and they would draw, you know, art of Dr. King and various Black leaders, and that would be on display at the Dr. King tribute, which is in January of every year. And I think that was it for the slides. I do want to talk about the society, which has been in operation, I think, for about 48 years. And our website is aachstricity.org. You can go there and get more information about the society. And we do have the scholarship, I guess I think it's June every year, when students are going off to college. And I think the society over the years has given out over $200,000 in scholarships. Some of our most recent scholarships recipients were Shakenya Taylor of American High School right here in Fremont, and Renee Diop of Washington High School. Both of them received $2,500 in scholarships. And a lot of the, I guess, recipients say the money comes in handy for them to purchase books and supplies while they're in college. As you know, the college books are, I mean, sometimes books can cost, for one class can cost as much as $100 to $200. So this money does come in handy. And I think Shakina Taylor is going to Howard University, and she's going to major in business administration. And Renee Diop from Washington High School, she's going to Cal State University, Long Beach, and she'll be majoring in political science. What we do is try to, I guess, spread the money out. There are usually 2 semesters of college or university, and we will give the students half of the money, the scholarship money, during the first semester, and then the other half at the second semester. And one of our notable recipients is the current city manager of Fremont. I don't remember. Let me see what her name was. Anyway, she's the
Shackelford. Shackelford.
Yes, Shackelford.
Karina
Yes.
Shackelford.
Karina, thank you very much. Karina Shackelford. She was one of our scholarship recipients, and other scholarship recipients. Let's see, Tommy Smith, who went to, I think, Howard University. He should be, I think, graduating now, if not, maybe one more year. And the scholarships that we have, Herman Ficklin Memorial Scholarship, we have that. That's in honor of Gene Ficklin's late husband. We have Doris Rutland Memorial Scholarship, which is in honor of one of our past members and one of our members, Samuel Rutland's wife. And then we have the African-American Historic Society Scholarship itself. And we're always trying to, I guess, raise more money or have money for the scholarship recipients, as well as trying to find a permanent home for the history and artifacts that have been collected by Gene and the society. And if you ever get a chance to, it's just, it's overwhelming of all of the things that have been collected over the years and are a part of the historical society. And it is very important that we do find a permanent home so these items can be shared with the public. It's something that we need to share, and people need to see and need to know and need to read about. And like I said, it's our past, our present, and our future as to where we go from here. Let's see, did I miss anything, Paul?
Well, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions here.
I hope I can answer them.
Yeah, so thank you for that very nice presentation.
Thank you.
We will post all of the slides to our website.
Okay.
And I also saw a couple of questions about the books that I referred to. I'll post that as well. But one thing you and I had kind of talked about was the importance of Juneteenth.
Oh.
And I, this is just my impression because I'm active in our Tri-City community, that it came as a surprise to many people that it suddenly became a national federal holiday. I mean, I've talked to many people around our community, and it was like, what? How did this happen? And so what we shared together, Ken, was that we didn't have the power of the internet back then during the Civil War.
Yes.
And many people don't know that President Abraham Lincoln issued a preliminary Emancipation Proclamation in September of 1862 at the height of the Civil War. And it was meant as a threat to the South that if you don't come back into the Union and you don't fold or negotiate, this is what I will do. Well, the South didn't cooperate, and so on January 1st, 1863, he issued the formal uh, Emancipation Proclamation.
Yes.
And that primarily freed the slaves that were in the border states close to the Union. But the southern states, they didn't have a chance to really uh, uh, hear this proclamation. And the Civil War ended at the beginning of Abraham Lincoln's second term in April of 1865, and he was assassinated a week later. And it was only in summer of 1865 that the word finally got down to Texas that they were actually free. 3 years almost to the date from the original preliminary proclamation. So that what we cherish today as Juneteenth was that final celebration of the liberation of the people who last heard the word that they were free people, right?
Yes.
So maybe you can elaborate on how this, and maybe Teresa too, how did this come to be a national holiday? What precipitated this?
Well, we as Black Americans have been celebrating. You just gave the history of what happened, how it happened. And the South did not want, they still don't want to give up slavery. They still are fighting it, segregation. And so they just didn't tell their slaves that they were free, and they got free work from slaves for an additional 3 years. And when they finally found out that they were free, like you said, it was almost 3 years later. And that's why we as African American and Black people celebrate Juneteenth. We've been celebrating it for a while now, and it has not been recognized. And because that's when you've heard the phrase, I'm free at last. Lord Almighty, I'm free at last. Well, this is when all of us were free at last. We were not free if our brothers and sisters in Texas were not free. And that's the thing that America does not understand and want to look at us and say, well, why are you celebrating? That's why we celebrate it. And I think Teresa can add something to that.
I think if you look at the migration pattern, I mean, some of you have been raised here in Fremont, but people that came from Texas, from down south, and have spread the love. I've been celebrating Juneteenth since I was a child. And they have the biggest celebrations of pageants to honor Juneteenth. You have scholarships, you have the festive events. But part of it is that the South still remembers this. In Galveston, Texas, that there was a founder, and I forgot the lady's name. She was the one that also had planted the seed with Biden. And if you even look at our state of California legislation, Juneteenth was already on the books of California already for many, many years. And so this is not something new. It was already proclaimed. We're just not exercising it until everybody through the President Biden did it on June the 17th of 2021 to make it an official federal holiday. But each city has got to adopt Juneteenth because it has to be part of the city's holiday plan for the employees in order to collaborate and matching up with the federal holiday of everything being shut down, like our banks and post office. But it's a celebration truly of freedom.
I have another subject that one of our members brought up about, what about the Negro League baseball? And does the museum have any display of those athletes? I believe that you do, but maybe you can comment on both that and the fact that we just had the Hall of Fame honorees in Cooperstown yesterday, and except for one of the players, all were known Black or Latino players. David Ortiz, Minnie Minosa, Tony Oliva, Bud Fowler, back from the 1800s, and Buck O'Neill. These were the faces of Negro League Baseball that were inducted into Cooperstown yesterday. And I also noted something else. Except for Ortiz, who was voted in by the Baseball Writers of America, which is almost entirely white, male journalists, all of the others were only inducted into the Hall of Fame based on other historical committees that brought force on the Hall of Fame. And so maybe you can just comment on all of the Black athletes and that have become prominent over more than a century.
Yeah. Well, Paul, I can say that the History Museum that the Society has a whole section on Black athletes and the history and bringing it forward and everything, from Jackie Robinson to Willie Mays, and just the whole section on Black athletes. And that's why I feel it's so important for us to find a permanent home so this information can be shared with everyone. It is just so important. And another, you have anything to add to that, to Teresa? You're muted.
You're muted.
The Negro National League, I just Googled it, it folded in 1931. And it's because a lot of the players went on to play major ball after Jackie Robinson, number 42, had broken the race barrier in the sports of baseball. But there's still other pockets of information. The Negro Southern League, and even in 1932, the Chicago Defender announced the end of their national league back then too. So it folded once there was the barriers that had broken for others to be able to play baseball equally with other athletes.
Yeah,
and that was the start of segregation and and leading to that cause there.
Yeah, and to mention as to Black sports and where we are right now, many of you know that Deion Sanders is the head football coach down at Jackson State University, historically Black college. And what he is doing down there is a lot of Black athletes who would usually go to white universities where they can be noted or recognized so they can get into the National Football League, are turning those schools down and coming to historically Black colleges and building those programs. And he is not only getting a lot of support for professional athletes, but he's also getting some, support from corporate America, which all of us need to join in to make sure that, our athletes, like you mentioned, the Negro League. I mean, why should we have a Negro League? It should be a league, and just being able to compete on a level playing field. And what he's doing down there is not only good for Jackson State University, but it's also good for the other historically Black colleges, especially the college that are in the what they call the SWAC, which is the Southern Conference, Athletic Conference. So that's a big thing, again, that's going on down there. And a lot of that is in the museum, which I think should be made available to everybody.
Ken, I don't remember the coach, but Grambling State University had one of the great football teams of all time for decades.
Doug Johnson.
Doug Johnson. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
And so many great black professional football players came out of
Came through
Grambling.
there.
And I think Deion Sanders is trying to do the same thing. And I believe his own son is now going to school there too.
He has two sons that are going to school there.
Yeah.
And
So,
Walter Payton went to school there.
yeah.
And so many, as a matter of fact, Walter Payton was there when I was there. I think during my junior year when Walter Payton came in.
Wow.
Yes. So, and that's a lot of, I guess, Black athletes that are recognizing or will recognize that they don't have to go to a prominent white university to be recognized anymore. And it's one thing when you're a person of color and you go to a white university and first of all, you feel alone. You don't feel that camaraderie that you would have at a Black university. And I know in the South, when we grew up, family was family. We took care of each other. And I've talked to some Black students that went to some of our recipients of the scholarships, and they said they felt more at home, more relaxed when they went to a historically Black college.
Well, as Teresa noted, our own vice president went to Howard University for her undergraduate education. I would like to close here on two subjects. One is I've spent my entire career in Silicon Valley in high technology, and it has not gone unnoticed by me the lack of people that have risen in corporate America among not only Black people, but other ethnicities and races as well. And with women, there's been a real ceiling in place. And for me, it was the exception in my career to see someone, and I had a Black African-American boss who lived here in Fremont. He was my boss at Xerox Corporation. And he told me how difficult it was, even in a progressive company at that time, to rise up in the organization. And so I just want to close by kind of wishing and saying a prayer for the advancement of all African-American people in our society. And one thing that struck me about your museum was where the speech of Dr. Martin Luther King, "I have a dream," and right next to it is Barack Obama saying, "I am the dream."
Exactly.
I am the dream. It came true.
Yes.
In our own lifetimes. So that to me was very touching. And again, I want to thank both of our guests tonight. This was recorded. It will be posted to our website. And thank you to everybody for pardoning me and Tim on not having the slides here, but we will post those as well, and the books that we made references to. I wish everybody a really good evening.
And again, I want to thank the Washington Township Historical Society. Teresa Cox, thank you so very much. And just thank you for allowing us, the society, to give a presentation this evening.
Yes.
Thank you.
We're in need of a new home too. Maybe we should merge.
Hey, let's talk about it.
Okay.
This is Patty Lacey here, and even though your pictures were not available, Ken, I enjoyed your chat very much, and yours also, Teresa. It was very special to have your remembrances and your research, and thank you very much. And I look forward to having a chance to see the pictures. Somebody put the audio together with the pictures and add it to our archives. So thank you again very much.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you so much, everyone, for having me tonight. And I will say that the Fremont Downtown Center does have Coretta Scott King You better believe we have changed a part of the city of Fremont. We have Coretta Scott King's quote going on the wall of the city of Fremont's downtown center. The greater love of the community is served with love and grace. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for watching.
I think President Weed would like to say a word.
Oh, just wish to thank Paul Sethi for putting the program together. His mother is watching as well. We have a full family. But thank you for your presentation and the bringing a part of our cultural history to the one more venue. So thank you again.
Okay, John, and one last thing. When we had the grand opening for the Civic Center in Newark, Jean Ficklin, I meant to say this, there is a reading room that's dedicated to her for her service to the city of Newark, and it has her picture there in the children's reading room. So if you get a chance, go by there and see it. But like you said, we're looking for a permanent home for all of the artifacts that have been collected over the years so we can share with everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and
Have a good night.
we will conclude the meeting at this point. Thank you so much, Teresa and Ken.
Thank you.